So I'm Ponch, Fabio, that's my real name, but Ponch is my nickname. As you might know, I work for GerritForge. It's been a while now. That was me in 2019. It was the last user summit we had face-to-face in Sunnyvale. And at that time, I was talking about my favorite dashboards. And the two top dashboard I presented were about GC metrics and repo size in general. So at that time, what we were doing to collect this important information about the shape of our repository was to have some really massive bash scripts in our Gerrit server, where we were, every time we were running GC, we were collecting some metrics like simply git count objects rather than metrics from the file system. And it was really a hacky way of doing that. And then we were importing the output in the log collectors and and draw out some nice graphs. Interesting information, but not really a scalable and maintainable solution. So I was like, there must be a better way of doing that. So we know that Gerrit has a really huge ecosystem of plugins, and then I thought, well, let's write a plugin to do that. And that's how I created a systematic way of collecting these metrics. Now, the plugin is called Git Repository Metrics plugin. It's been around for not for long, I would say 6 months roughly. And we use it in Gerrit.io. We have some customers using that, so yeah, it's already in production. Now, which kind of metrics do we expose? At the moment, we expose 2 types of metrics, some Git stats and some file system metrics. I'm going to show you exactly which are the metrics exposed. The first cluster of metrics that we expose are Git statistics. So basically, the output of a Git count object minus v. Actually, a bit enriched because we use the equivalent, the Git equivalent of this command. So you have all these metrics here that you can see: bitmaps, loose object, loose ref, packed object, etc., etc. So this is the first cluster of metrics that we expose. The second one we call them file system stats, and they are just information about the status of the file system of your Git repositories. So we are talking about keep files, number of files in general, number of directories, number of empty directories. Each of these, particularly if you are using like an NFS to store your Git repositories, they're quite interesting. They create a big impact on the performance on your NFS file system. So you better watch out for this number if they go up. Now, the way you configure the plugin is pretty simple. It's nothing crazy. So at the moment there are just 3 parameters. So you have this extra configuration file, git-repo-metrics.config, and in that you can configure, first of all, a list of the project you want to collect metrics for. So the plugin doesn't collect metrics for all the repositories, which would be a bit expensive. It just extracts the metrics from the repository that you specify. And then we have this grace period, which is a period between sample collections. So if you don't want to be too aggressive on your file system, since we collect metrics based on events, and imagine that you have a busy repository, you don't want to keep collecting, keep going to the file system just to update some metrics, which can also that you can also get some benefit even if they're not real time, right? So that's the other parameter that we use. And then we have this pool size, which is the number of threads that are used to collect metrics. So if you have like more repositories, for example, and you want to collect more metrics in parallel, you can play with this knob basically to optimize the collection of the metrics. So this is how you configure it. Now, Luca yesterday was talking about dimensions of growth of repositories. And I took a picture of the screen while he was presenting, and I was like, okay, let's see if we actually cover this 3 dimension that Luca was talking about yesterday. And we do. So we do have a number of packfrefs, so that was one dimension. Second dimension, the number of objects, so we covered that one as well. And the third one, the disk space. So we covered the 3 dimensions that Luca was talking about yesterday. So we are safe. You can really keep an eye on your repository, and you can try to prevent having a problem. Let's have a look at some of the interesting stuff that you can see. So this is from a production system, and is the number of loose ref graph. We can already see something quite interesting. So guess what's going on here? GC. So we can see that the GC is working here. So on this system in particular, we are running GC every 2 hours, and we can see that it's working. Since this project in particular basically is based on a monorepo, we really want to make sure that the GC works, because if it doesn't work, if you just lose 1 cycle of GC, that's it. The performances of your repo will just go down. So we also have alarms on that. So we can have systematic alarms that fire off whenever the GC doesn't work. So we can prevent degradation of performances. The other thing that is interesting to notice is this. So what's this? Just the weekend. People don't work, so clearly the number of loose ref, they will go down. Now, another graph that I think is quite interesting, if you want to do provisioning of your hardware, for example, is the increase of the pack ref. So another important information that you can get out of the plugin. And then something that we found out while looking at this graph. So we noticed that the number of loose objects and the number of directories, somehow they don't go together. So we don't know why yet, but at least with those metrics, we notice that particular behavior. And we can start investigating. We can ask ourselves if we are actually, if there's actually a problem behind that, or that's really the way Gerrit works. So we finally have a window of metrics that shows us how our repository is behaving and how it's growing. And that was it, pretty much. Any questions?